This video will cover installing i3 with Debian on a Chromebook without rooting. This is a Media Blitz format that will allow me to share topics faster and keep pace with frequently updated topics. My channel focuses on adding the power of Linux to your Android, Chromebook, or PC without the need to root or remove your system. Additionally, I cover cross-platform topics. My playlists are available from the homepage on my YouTube channel and are organized by operating system and cross-platform topics. To make it easier to follow along with my videos, I include the full written instructions in the pinned comment. So if you scroll down to the comments of the current video you are watching now, you will see the top pinned comment containing the written instructions. To see the whole comment, click on Read More. Any updates will be noted at the top of the pinned comment. Note that you can copy and paste the notes into a text file like I have here with the mousepad text editor. Or, if you're feeling fancy, we can copy and paste the notes into a TiddlyWiki notebook, also known as Flexible Offline Searchable Notes. Here, I pressed the backtick key from the top left of the keyboard so that there are 3 backticks before and after the text. This will apply monospaced block formatting. Keep in mind that you can modify the notes however you'd like, whether that's formatting, adding images, or changing what's in the notes. For more information on TiddlyWiki, I recommend watching my TiddlyWiki videos. That concludes the intro, now onward to the video. So the first thing we're going to do is delete some Chromebook keyboard shortcuts so that they don't interfere with i3wm later on. To do that, we can open up the Chromebook menu and open up the Key Shortcuts app. From the Key Shortcuts app, we can search for dictation. When the dictation keyboard shortcut comes up, we can click on it, and then we can click on the Edit button to the right of the dictation shortcut. Then from here, we can click on the trash can icon button to delete the shortcut, and then we can click on the Done button. After that, we're going to delete one more shortcut, so we're going to search for Quick Insert. Then we can click on the Quick Insert shortcut. And then we can click on the Edit button that's to the right of the Quick Insert shortcut. Then click on the Delete button. And finally, click on the Done button. Note that the Chromebook shortcuts can all be reset by clicking on the Reset All Shortcuts button from the bottom left. Now that we've deleted those shortcuts, we can close out of the Key Shortcuts app. Now we're going to install Linux. To install Linux, we can open up the Chromebook Settings app, and from the list on the left side, we can scroll down to About Chrome OS, and from About Chrome OS, we can scroll down to the Developers section, and to the right of Linux Development Environment, we can click on the Setup button. Now from the Setup Linux Development Environment window, we can click on the Next button, and from here we can set the username and disk size to whatever we would like. The disk size is the amount of storage being set aside for Linux. When we are satisfied with the username and disk size, we can click on the Install button. The install should just take a couple of minutes. When Linux is finished installing, a terminal app will open. From here we can temporarily adjust the text size by doing Ctrl+ or Ctrl- on our keyboard. Now the first command we are going to execute is sudo space apt space update space -y. This will update the software index list. After that, we are going to execute sudo space apt space dist -upgrade space -y. This will update already installed packages. Now we are going to install some software. For our first install, we will do sudo space apt space install space i3 space -y. This will install i3wm. After that, we are going to do sudo space apt space install space nano space -y. This will install the Nano text editor. Then for our next install, we will do sudo space apt space install space mousepad space -y. Mousepad is a text editor with a GUI-based interface. After that, for our next install, we will do sudo space apt space install space x server -zephyr space -y. Zephyr is what we're going to use to help hold the desktop together. After that, we're going to do sudo space apt space install space xterm space -y. Xterm is a terminal. Now finally, for our last install, we are going to do sudo space apt space install space synaptic space -y. Synaptic is for installing software in a GUI-based interface. Now we are going to create a script that we will use for starting up i3wm. To do that, we will first execute sudo space nano space /usr/bin/go i3. This will use the nano text editor to create a file called go i3 in the /usr/bin file path. For the first line, we will type in Zephyr starting with a capital X space -br space -fullscreen space -resizable space :20 space ampersand. Note that resizable is purposely spelled wrong with an extra E in the middle. This line will create a nested X server, which is what i3wm will run inside of. For the next line, we will type in sleep space 5. This will give some time for the nested X server to start up. For the third and last line, we will type in all capital letters display equal to :20 space lowercase I 3 space ampersand. This line is what's going to start up i3wm. Once we're done typing that all in, we can do Ctrl-O, Enter, and Ctrl-X to save the file and exit nano. After that, we are going to execute sudo space chmod space +x space /usr/bin/go i3. This will make the go i3 script executable so that we can use it. Now we can use the script we just made to start up i3wm. So we can execute go i3 and then wait a few moments for i3wm to start up. When i3wm first starts up, we will get a dialog that asks us if we want to generate the config file. So for the first dialog, we will press Enter to confirm that we want to generate the config file. Then for the second dialog, with the Win option still selected, we will press Enter again to finish writing out the config file. Once we've done that, we are going to go back to the terminal app, press Enter, and then we are going to execute cp space ~config/i3/config space ~config/i3/config.bak. This will create a copy of the config file that we just generated, so that way we have something to go back to in case we need it. Now we are going to edit that config file by doing mousepad space ~.config/i3/config. This will open up the i3 configuration file with the mousepad text editor. When mousepad opens, we can go ahead and make it full screen. Now before we edit the config file, we can configure mousepad so that the file is a lot more readable. To do that, we can first go to the Edit menu, select Preferences, and from Preferences, I recommend checking Show Line Numbers, Highlight Current Line, and Highlight Matching Brackets. We can also adjust the font size by unchecking Use System Monospace Font. Then we can click on the current font and adjust the font size to our liking. Additionally, we can change the color scheme by clicking on the Color Scheme pull-down and selecting whichever color scheme we would like. My personal favorite is Cobalt, so I'm going to choose that one. After we've made those configurations, we can go ahead and close out of mousepad preferences. After that, we can make one more adjustment that will make the file significantly easier to read. To do that, we can go to the Document menu, and under File Type, in the Script category, we can select SH. So now we have syntax highlighting, which will make this a lot easier to work with. Now we are going to make a few changes to the config file. So to find text in mousepad, we can do Ctrl F on our keyboard, and then we are going to type pango:\m and then press enter. This will take us to the point in the file where pango:\m is located. From here, we're going to change 8 to 20. This will change the window title font size. Note that you can change the font size to whatever you would like. After that, we're going to do Ctrl F again, and this time we are going to do a find on SEN. Now for this line, we are going to replace i3-sensible-terminal with xterm space -e space bash. This will modify the shortcut for starting a terminal so that it starts up with the xterm terminal. After that, we're going to do a find on dmenu_run. And on this line, we are going to replace dmenu_run with i3-dmenu-desktop. This will start up the i3 menu whenever we use the dmenu shortcut. After that, we're going to do Ctrl F again, and we're going to do a find on mod plus H. For this line, we're going to replace $mod with mod1 plus control starting with a capital C. This will change the keyboard shortcut for opening up a window horizontally. Next, we're going to find mod plus V, and we are going to replace $mod with mod1 plus control starting with a capital C. This changes the keyboard shortcut for opening a window vertically. Next up, we're going to find Shift plus SP. Here we're going to change $mod plus Shift with mod1 plus control starting with a capital C. This will change the keyboard shortcut for toggling a floating window. Next, we're going to find bind SYM space $mod plus 1 space workspace. And here for all 10 of the switch to workspace shortcuts, we're going to change $mod so that it is mod 1. Then for our last find, we are going to search for bind SYM space $mod plus shift plus 1 space move. And just like we did before this, we are going to change the next 10 lines so that all instances of $mod are replaced with mod 1. And finally, for our last edit, we are going to go to the end of the config file, so we can scroll down to the end of the config file, and we're going to add 2 lines to the end of the file. So we're going to press enter, and then we are going to enter in exec space exit space s space off space £. Anything that comes after the £sign is just a comment, and I'm just adding a note that this line turns off the screensaver, and to see that the screensaver is turned off, we can execute exit space q. So all this line does is it turns the screensaver off. Then for the second line, we are going to type in exec space xrdb space -merge space ~.X and then in lowercase letters resources space ampersand space xterm space -e space bash. This line will configure the xterm terminal with the xresources file, and it will start up the xterm terminal. It is important that we press enter once more because it's like pressing enter to execute a command. Once we've made all those configurations, we can go to the file menu from the top left and select save. Once we've saved our changes, we can close out of Mousepad. Next, we are going to create the .xresources file that will configure xterm. To do that, we will execute nano space ~.X and then in lowercase letters resources. The tilde represents the home directory. So this line will create a file called .xresources in the home directory, and it will open it with the nano text editor. From here, I'm just going to paste in an example configuration file for xterm. I will have the same configuration file in the pinned comment. To paste in the terminal app, we simply do Ctrl-Shift-V on our keyboard. Note that the face size refers to the font size. Once we're done with creating the .xresources file, we can do Ctrl-O, Enter, and Ctrl-X to save the file and exit Nano. After that, we are going to shut down Linux by right-clicking on the terminal app from the bottom shelf. Select Shutdown Linux. And once Linux has shut down, we can click on Penguin and wait a few moments for the terminal to start up. Once the terminal has started back up, we can execute the go i3 script, and this time, when i3 comes up, it will automatically start up with an Xterm terminal and it will be configured. Now all we have left to configure is dmenu. To do that, we will first execute sudo space cp space /usr /bin /i3-dmenu-desktop space /usr/bin /i3-dmenu-desktop.bak. This will make a copy of the dmenu configuration file so that we have something to go back to in case we need it. After that, we will execute sudo space mousepad space /usr /bin /i3-dmenu-desktop. This will open up the dmenu configuration file with mousepad. Since this is our first time using mousepad with root, it will not be configured. So again, we can configure mousepad by going to the Edit menu and select Preferences. Then, just like I did before, I'm going to check Show Line Numbers, highlight Current Line, highlight Matching Brackets, and then I'm also going to adjust the font size by unchecking Use System Monospace Font, and then I'm going to click on the current font and adjust the font size. Finally, I'm going to click on the Color Scheme pull-down and I'm going to select Cobalt again. Then to close out of Preferences, we can do Launcher Shift Q on our keyboard. Note that the launcher key will look different depending on the Chromebook. So the launcher key could have a magnifying glass on it, it could have a circle on it, or it could have a special G key. Once we've configured mousepad, we can do Ctrl-F and do a find on $D. So on this line, between the I and single quote, we are going to add space -FN space / single quote mono starting with a capital M -22 / single quote. This will set the font size for dmenu. After that, for our last change, we are going to find double quote $EX, and we're going to add a line before the line that starts with $CMD. So we will add $EXEC space = space double quote ENV space in all capital letters GDK underscore backend = lowercase x11 space $ left curly bracket EXEC right curly bracket double quote semicolon. The GDK variable that we set here will help to keep apps running inside the desktop. Once we've made those changes, we can go to the File menu, select Save to save our changes, and then we can close out of mousepad by going to the File menu and select Quit. Now all we have left to do is shut down Linux by right-clicking on the terminal app again, select Shutdown Linux, and once Linux has shut down, we can click on Penguin, wait a few moments for the terminal to start up, and once it is started up, we can execute the go i3 script to start up i3. So now we have finished configuring i3. Keep in mind that we do not use the i3 shutdown to shut down Linux on a Chromebook. To shut down Linux properly on a Chromebook, we right-click on the terminal app from the bottom shelf, select Shutdown Linux, and after Linux has shut down, we can close out of the terminal app. Then whenever we want to start Linux back up, we can open up the terminal app, select Penguin, give the terminal a few moments to start up, And once the terminal has started back up, we can execute the go i3 script to start i3. If you encounter an issue with the terminal starting up, then what we can do is shut down Linux, close the terminal app, shut down the Chromebook, then restart the Chromebook, put the Chromebook online, start up the terminal app, and if the terminal finishes starting up, then we can try starting up i3 again. Now that we've got i3 configured, here's some of the common i3 shortcuts. Again, the launcher key will differ depending on the Chromebook, so it could have a magnifying glass, a circle, or a special G key. So whichever key opens up the app drawer on the Chromebook is the launcher key. So Launcher D will launch D menu, which we can use for opening apps. Launcher Enter will open a new Xterm window. Launcher Shift Q will close a window. Alt-Control-V will make the next window open up vertically. Alt-Control-H will make the next window open up horizontally. And Alt-Control-Space will toggle a floating window. A couple of other useful shortcuts are Launcher R, which allows us to resize the windows with the arrow keys, and then to exit resizing, we can do Launcher R again on our keyboard. Additionally, Alt 0 through 9 will switch workspaces, and Alt Shift 0 through 9 will move a window to a specified workspace. Finally, some useful shortcuts for the Xterm terminal are Control L, which clears the terminal. Highlighting text is the equivalent of copying, and holding Shift and doing a 3-finger click on the mouse pad will paste text in Xterm. Next, I am going to show an example of using Synaptic Package Manager for installing software. So to do that, I'm first going to close out the Xterm window by doing Launcher Shift Q on my keyboard. Then I'm going to launch D menu by doing Launcher D. To scroll through D menu, we can press the left and right arrow keys, and then to search for programs, we can start typing in the name of a program, and then with the program selected, we can press enter to launch it. So here I typed in SY and Synaptic Package Manager came up, so I'm pressing enter to launch Synaptic Package Manager. Whenever we open up Synaptic, it's generally a good idea to reload by clicking on the reload button from the top left. This will update the list of available packages. When Synaptic is done reloading, we can search for software by clicking on the search button from the top right. And then I'm going to search by name by clicking on the look and pull down and select name. And then I'm going to search for HTOP. HTOP is an interactive process viewer for a terminal. When HTOP comes up, we can right-click on it, select Mark for Installation. Then to install HTOP, we can click on the Apply button that's near the top left, and then click on Apply again to confirm the install. When HTOP is done installing, we can click on the Close button in the Changes Applied window, and then we can close out of Synaptic by doing Launcher Shift Q on our keyboard. Now I'm going to start up a new Xterm window by doing Launcher Enter on my keyboard, and then I'm going to execute HTOP, and now we get a cool looking process viewer. Now I'm going to show some eye candy. First, I'll need to install a couple of things. For my first install, I will do sudo space apt space install space screenfetch space -y. Screenfetch is a fun and useful terminal display that shows system information. After that, I'm going to do sudo space apt space install space neofetch space -y. Neofetch is a lot like screenfetch, where it shows system information in a fun and useful way from a terminal. After that, I'm going to do sudo space apt space install space gdu space -y. GDU is a disk usage analyzer for a terminal. Next, I'm going to execute sudo space apt space install space ranger space -y. Ranger is a terminal-based file manager. After that, for the next install, I'm going to do sudo space apt space install space sxiv space -y. sxiv is an image viewer. Now for my next install, I'm going to do sudo space apt space install space caca-utils space -y. caca-utils gives us fun utilities for ASCII art. When that's done installing, I'm going to do sudo space apt space install space ninvaders space -y. This is one of the fun terminal games that we can install. Next, I'm going to do sudo space apt space install space tint space -y. Tint is another fun terminal game that we can play. And for my last install, I'm going to do sudo space apt space install space cmatrix space -y. Cmatrix will give us a really cool terminal display. Keep in mind that most programs have a --help option and a man page. For example, I can do ninvaders space --help and I'll get a list of all the options that I can use for ninvaders. Additionally, I can do man space ninvaders and I'll get a much more detailed description of everything. To exit out of a man page, we can press the Q key. Now, on to the good stuff. The first thing I'm going to execute is ninvaders. This will start up the ninvaders game. When the window comes up, I'm going to do Alt-Control Space to make the window float so it is more centered. To start the game, we simply press the Space key. To play the game, we can press the left and right arrow keys to move, and then press the space bar to shoot. Whenever we are done playing the game, we can press the Q key to quit. Next up, let's execute Tint. When we execute Tint, we can choose the level we would like to start with. After that, the game will start. To move the blocks, we can press the left and right arrow keys, and to rotate the blocks, we can press the K key. Then from there, we can do our best to avoid the blocks from reaching the top. Whenever we want to exit out of Tint, we can press the Q key. Now I'm going to show how to recreate the screen that I showed in the thumbnail. To do that, we will first execute htop to launch htop, then we can do Alt-Control-H to open up the next window horizontally, and then press Launcher Enter to open up another Xterm window. From the second Xterm window, we can execute neofetch to display our system information, and then we can do Alt-Control-V to open up the next window vertically, and again we're going to do Launcher Enter to launch yet another Xterm window. In the last Xterm window, we can execute cmatrix space -C space in lowercase letters magenta. Then as a final touch, we can press Launcher R to resize the windows. So I'm going to use the arrow keys to resize the cmatrix windows so it fits better. And then we can press Launcher R to exit resizing. So now we have an awesome display that we can show off. Whenever we are done with this screen arrangement, we can press the Q key to exit out of cmatrix. Then I'm going to execute exit to close out of the Xterm window. And then for htop, we can press the Q key to quit. And then I'm going to execute exit to close out of that terminal window. And finally, I'm going to clear the terminal that has neofetch by doing Ctrl L on my keyboard. Next up, I'm going to show using the Ranger file manager. To launch Ranger, we simply type in Ranger and press Enter. To scroll through Ranger, we can use the up and down arrow keys. We can also toggle hidden files by doing Ctrl H. To go into a folder or open a file, we can use the right arrow key. Then to go up a directory, we can use the left arrow key. So here I'm scrolling down to the Pictures folder, then I'm pressing the right arrow key to go into the Pictures folder, and then I'm going to press the right arrow key again to view the images in my Pictures folder. This will automatically open up the SXIV image viewer. Note that the last lines in the xresources file that I showed earlier were for configuring SXIV. To go to the next picture in SXIV, we can press the N key, To go to the previous picture, we can press the P key. Then when we are done with SXIV, we can press the Q key. And to close out of Ranger, we press, you guessed it, the Q key. Now I'm going to execute GDU. GDU allows us to see how much space is being taken up by different files and folders. To scroll, we can use the up and down arrow keys. To go into a directory, we can use the right arrow key, and to go up a directory, we can use the left arrow key. To close out of GDU, we press the Q key. Now let's have some fun with some ASCII art. First, we can execute CA demo. This will give an ASCII art demo that will flip through a few different displays. This is very hypnotizing. If we'd like, we can press enter to skip to the next display. Then to exit out of the demo, we can press the escape key. And for fun, we can generate our own ASCII art with a picture. To do that, we can navigate into the folder that has the picture we want to use. For my example, my pictures are in the Pictures folder, so I'm going to do CD space pictures to go into the Pictures folder. After that, I'm going to execute ls to list the files. Now to generate the ASCII art with a picture, we can do ca view space the name of the image. Then when we are ready, we can press enter to generate the ASCII art. Note that if the image comes up too blocky, then we can adjust the text size from the X-Resources file that I showed earlier so that it's smaller and it shows more detail. To close out of ca view, we can press the Q key. And finally, to get a cozy fire going, we can execute ca fire. This will give us a fire display with ASCII art. Then once we're warmed up enough, we can exit out of this by pressing the escape key. For further information about i3wm and loads of documentation, we can go to the official i3 website, which is i3wm.org. From the website, if we go to the docs page, there's lots of documentation. For example, there's the user's guide, which gives us lots of documentation for i3wm. Note that you can print the user's guide as a PDF to keep an offline version of the documentation. Additionally, from the docs page, there's the i3 reference card. From here, we can take a screenshot for quick reference. Note that any shortcuts that are modified will overwrite any instructions from this reference card. In addition to the written documentation, we can go to the screens page where there's plenty of i3wm video tutorials. More specifically, we can scroll down to the series of screencasts on installing, using, and configuring i3 and click on the Watch It on YouTube link. This will take us to a playlist of tutorials by Alex Booker. Another useful video is the Tiling Window Managers presentation by Aline Abler. I will have this video linked in the pinned comment. Here I've listed some of the Debian documentation that we can download. Keep in mind that the URL file:// can be used with any browser. This gives us an easy way to search and view PDF and HTML-based books. We can also use QPDFView for viewing PDF books. For the Debian documentation, I've listed what we can install and where the documentation is located after it has been installed. So some of the documentation we can download is Debian-Handbook, Debian-Reference, Installation-Guide, and then we can also install Maint-Guide. This stands for Maintenance Guide. There's also Debian-Ref card. This will give us the reference card. And last but not least, if we install ABS-Guide, we will get the Advanced Bash Scripting book. So I'm going to show how to open up the Advanced Bash Scripting book with a browser as an example. So first I'm going to close the Xterm window by doing Launcher Shift-Q. Then I'm going to do Launcher D to launch dmenu. And I'm going to search for Fire so that Firefox comes up, and I'm going to press Enter to open up the browser. Then from the browser, we can go to the URL file://. This will let us view our files from the browser. So from here, I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to go into the USR folder. Then I'm going to go into the Share folder. After that, I'm going to scroll down and go into the Doc folder. And from here, I'm going to go into the ABS-Guide folder. After that, I'm going to scroll down and go into the HTML folder. And finally, I'm going to scroll down until I find the index.html file, and I'm going to click on it. So now we are viewing the Advanced Bash Scripting book. After navigating to this, I recommend bookmarking the page so that we don't have to navigate to it every time we want to open it. So to navigate through this book, we can scroll down and click on wherever we would like to start. For my example, I'll be clicking on the special characters section, and then from here I'm going to scroll down to an example I would like to execute. Once I found the example I'd like to do, I'm going to do Alt-Control-V so that the next window I open will open up vertically. Then I'm going to do Launcher Enter to open up a Xterm window. And from here, I'm going to highlight the example from the book that I would like to try out. Then I'm going to hover my mouse over the Xterm window. And I'm going to hold Shift and do a 3-finger click on the mouse pad to paste the example. And then I'm going to press Enter to execute it. If you'd like to be able to scale the desktop by height, width, or by a percentage on the fly, then I recommend watching my desktop scaling video that I will have linked in the pinned comment. The only difference is in the main Go script we would replace start LXDE with i3. Note that the other 5 scripts that are needed for scaling are covered in the desktop scaling video. So if we set up i3 so that we can scale it, we can execute go i3 space the scale that we would like to use. For this example, I'm doing 130 to scale the desktop to be 130%. So scaling can come in handy for a few reasons. For example, if an app is unable to be full screen, such as the Frozen Bubble game in my example, then we can scale the desktop to be bigger so that the app takes up the majority of the screen. So I'm going to open the tool KRuler so that I can measure the height of the Frozen Bubble window so that I know what height to make my desktop. After measuring, I can see the window is 480 pixels high. Now that I know that, I can go back to the Terminal app and execute go i3 space h space 480 so that the height of the desktop will be 480. When the desktop starts up, I can launch Frozen Bubble, and when I start up Frozen Bubble, it takes up the majority of the screen. Then to black out the rest of the screen, I can press the F key. So now the game will be a lot more enjoyable to play. The same applies to the reverse. For example, for the ASCII art, if it comes out blobby, then we can make everything in the desktop smaller so that we can get a higher resolution, which will give us more detailed ASCII art. And that's all for this video, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon!